And we are live, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the Firearms Radio Network. This is the Black Powder Podcast, the only podcast where a couple white dudes and a black dude get together and talk about how much the government sucks and how awesome guns are.
I'm the black dude.
Yeah, and Marcus is the black dude. If you haven't heard, I also have the surname White, so you know that I'm one of the white dudes. The other white dude is Eric Parker, Bold Liberty, with us, other guest. And then he's the guest host here also. And then we have tonight a repeat guest. Imagine, again, a young child in the national forest. He's a feral child. He is living off wild berries and goat milk, hippie parents and Big Sur. And one day he stumbles upon an abandoned computer. He teaches himself how to program that day. He becomes a computer genius overnight, launches a tech company, makes millions of dollars, takes on the IRS. And to give back to everyone, he says, you know what? I'm going to run for president as a libertarian. Mr. Lars Mapstead. Lars, thank you so much for joining us tonight on the Black Powder Podcast.
Oh, man. Thanks so much for having me back again. I love this show. It's awesome. You guys are awesome.
Yeah, dude, it's a lot of fun over here. I was just telling somebody else that, like, sitting down with this kind of like thing is so much easier than like a structured radio program. You can say what you want to say whenever you want to say it. And so it's pretty awesome. So we're going to jump right into it. Okay. You had a town hall last night that was very successful. There was, I believe, 50 to 60 attendees, which is pretty big for a first of the year POTUS potential hopeful candidate. And you rolled out the Voter Bill of Rights. That's your first policy agenda that your team has rolled out. Man, just tell us about it. Tell us about the VBR.
Yeah. So I think, it comes down to the fact that I started running for office here. And, one of the goals that I have is to win an electoral vote in Maine or Nebraska or, a couple other states that we have our thing on. So the first state that I ended up going to was Maine. And I was like, yeah, I want to win this electoral vote, guys. How's the ballot access here in Maine? And they're like, oh, yeah, about that.
Yeah.
We don't have that. And I'm like, what? And they said, well, the Secretary of State and deleted all the libertarians off the voter rolls in Maine. So there's no libertarians left. We're zero.
So to clarify, they didn't delete the voter themselves. They just took their party affiliation away, right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah.
The person didn't know what happened. They're still eligible to vote, but they're no longer registered as a libertarian.
Right. And so the chair of Maine and the people in Maine figured out that shenanigans were going on, and they sued the state of Maine. And the judge ruled that they were correct, that those shouldn't have been removed.
Yeah.
God. But he didn't restore them. He didn't order them to have the libertarian put back on. So they're like, oh, yeah, we screwed up, but we're not fixing
justice.
No big deal, right? And so, and at the time, he said, okay, so they were like, what do we have to do to be a major party status again? And he's like, you got to get 10,000 new registered libertarians in the next year. And they were like, yeah, that's going to be hard since we never even had 10,000 to begin with. Right. So they went back to some legislature there, and they were able to get it reduced to 5,000 registered voters, which was still a Herculean task.
Yeah.
Right? It was still a huge amount of task, because getting a registered voter is a lot harder than getting somebody to sign a petition.
That's correct.
You have to go through some hoops to make it happen, right? And you can't just it's hard to just stop somebody on the side of the street and be like, "Hey, you want to register to vote? I'm going to register you as a libertarian today." They're like, "Nah," right? So what happened was, they said we need this, and we have some professional people that are getting these voters signed up. But it'd be great if you could come and put boots on the ground and sign up some people yourself. And I was like, oh, hell yeah, I'm doing that. I want to get involved, grassroots, on the ground, do the deal, right? I want to shake people's hands, look them in the eye, and figure out what's really going on here. And after doing that for 2 days and getting really little success, I realized quickly that we needed pro help, and we needed it really rapidly, because we only had like 90 days left to get over 2,000 new registered voters.
And again, for anyone that's never done this, that is a big ask.
Yeah.
It's a very big ask. Yeah.
And so
I'm sorry. I just have a question. What do they base these numbers on? Are they just numbers they pulled out of their ass?
They just make them up.
10,000, 5,000? what's the actual population of Maine? It's like one of the least populated states in the nation.
1.3 million, 1.4 million people. It's pretty small. It's pretty small. So, but yeah, they just come up with these numbers, and of course, every state is different because every state gets to run their election system the way that they want. So it's just all over the map, right? It's all over the map, and so basically, what ended up happening was we realized it wasn't going to make it. And we weren't going to get ballot access in Maine in time to get me on the ballot. And I was like, oh, that's going to wreck my plan, right? We gotta get in there and do something here, right?
Maine is kind of important.
Yeah. So we went all in, and I put in $25,000 of my own money. We got 2 or 3 other heavy hitter ballot guys in the LP that are awesome old school guys that stepped up to the plate and put money in. The LNC National put money in. And the state party put money in. And so all in, we were like in over $50,000 or more. And
again, another timeout on this. Like, that's also awesome that in this, there's a little bit of a contention in the LP for you to organize all these people and get some cohesiveness around something. Already is showing some leadership, in my opinion, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it was, and it was, the main party was really on it. Like they were crushing it. Harrison Kemp, who's the chair of the main party, he's an awesome guy, and he stepped up the plate and made it happen too. And they did that litigation. Without that litigation, it also wouldn't have happened, right? So it was a serious team effort. But even up to last week, we didn't know if it was going to make it or not because it was that tight. Like we ended up having to pay like $15 per registration at the end there. Like that was crazy, right? And they got in just enough. And yesterday we learned that we made major party status for the Libertarian Party in Maine. And holy crap, right? Woo! Yeah. That means that anybody who wants to run in Maine is automatically on the ballot and doesn't have to do shit anymore. Right? That's awesome. That's freaking awesome. Now we can run people, we can win elections. And you know what I kind of came up with this new thought is like, when we're trying to get these ballot access, we're running a freaking marathon to get to the starting line of the next marathon that we got to run while everybody else is all fresh. Right?
It's absolute bullshit.
It's total bullshit.
Just total bullshit.
I think it's a rigged system. I think it's
what? Wait, I'm sorry, fellas. We have to stop there. What the hell do you mean by rigged system? There's no such thing. This is America. Are you anti-American, Lars?
There's nothing rigged going on in America today. Everything's on the up and up. It's all transparent. It has integrity. Everybody knows it's honest and fair and equal. Of course, in all systems across the land. There's nothing going on.
So funky. The VBR, because again, I work with you on your policy team. All disclosure here. The VBR didn't necessarily come from this issue. It was already sort of a policy agenda, but it kind of tied into this. Don't you find it interesting, though, that an issue that we know independent candidates, third-party candidates are aware of ballot access? And again, when I tell people about it, they're always completely taken by surprise. They go, there's no way that works that way in America. They're like, there's no way. And I'm like, no, that's exactly how it works. Don't you think it's interesting that this concept comes up with Trump also now? Yeah. Like just at the time we're releasing this is now a national conversation.
That's right. And I say that the duopoly only cares about free and fair elections when it affects them, because this has been going on all of our lives. They've been suppressing the libertarians and independent candidates. And suddenly when Trump is like kept off one ballot, the whole world goes ballistic and it's news every day. Like they never say nothing about libertarians, but we're getting suppressed and oppressed every freaking day. And then there's never a cricket out of them. And suddenly they're all whining and complaining, and like in New Hampshire, just this week, the Democrat Party said that they weren't going to honor whatever New Hampshire primary voters voted on because the whole thing was a farce anyway, and it was just a sham election. It didn't have any bearing on whether or not who was picked for president. Well, if it has no bearing on who we pick, why the hell are we doing it? Why are we spending taxpayer money to elect a private corporation's nominee? And the people why are they even bothering to show up when it means nothing? They said they said the dirty part out loud today.
The quiet part out loud for sure. And what do you think it probably cost the taxpayer in New Hampshire for the primary? What do you?
$100
million?
No,
maybe?
not that much, but it's definitely millions and millions of dollars, right? Like I know California is like $100 million or something crazy like that. But for a small state, it's probably not, but it's still, it's per capita, right? And so each citizen is paying like 300 or 400 bucks for a sham farce election. You don't think that regular folks could take that 400 bucks and buy some new clothes for their kids, or put some more food on the table? No, the government is just robbing them to give these private corporations a thing. It would be ridiculous if I told you guys, hey guys, Apple's having a shareholder meeting and I want you all to pony up 400 bucks so Apple can pick who's going to be the CEO of their company. I mean, you guys would just flip me off and tell me to go to hell, right? But that's literally what we're doing in America right now. It's ridiculous.
That's the American way, though, isn't it? Is that we have corporate welfare masquerading as individual welfare in a number of programs, and so it's no coincidence it's also happened with the DNC and the RNC directly. Like they're not even hiding it anymore.
No.
So anyway, also you got Maine handled, you got that all done, you got major party status. We turn around, Trump has this, the VBR is coming out. What else do you like about the Voter Bill of Rights? I mean, obviously you like all of it, but what else do you like about it?
Yeah, so that first piece just levels the playing field for ballot access. It makes it so everyone in America can run for office on an equal playing field. No one has to run a marathon before they get to start the game, right? And that's the way it should be. No party or affiliation should have any advantage over anybody else. And so that's what this first piece of the Voters Bill of Rights does. And it limits the fees that you have to pay to 1% of the office or 1,000 signatures. And it's across the board the same. So you don't have to like figure it out if you live in Kentucky or you live in Arkansas or you live in New York, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So that piece is good. And then, there's all the pieces that we crafted essentially are nonpartisan. They should appeal to all Americans because they're just, and they bring back integrity to our system, right? And so we thought of things that everybody's pissed off in the system about that we could easily fix without it being like a constitutional amendment or it being like some crazy like workaround to make it happen. Just common sense stuff that would just fix our elections so everybody would like think, okay, I feel like this is working for me again, right? This is because this is a representative government, right? And if you're not getting represented and you're not feeling represented, then what kind of government do we really have, right?
Yeah.
Like so the second piece of the Voters Bill of Rights tackles this evil thing that we've all come to know called gerrymandering. Right?
What's that? What's Jerry? Who's Jerry?
Yeah.
What's he mandering?
Explain.
Who's Jerry? And I've talked to some friends of mine, and they're like, I don't know what gerrymandering is, but essentially, what gerrymandering is a rigged system that the duopoly uses to carve out individual people and individual households to make it so that they have a much better chance of being reelected. So much so that they have something like a 90% reelection rate in Congress. And they literally will, they're not supposed to like carve out these things on racial profiling or on, economic profiling or any of that kind of stuff, but they do.
They do. So, I mean, like, I think I've told you and Marcus, would it surprise you, Marcus, to learn that Arkansas Republicans, when they drew their district, made sure that there was just enough black people in every one that they would be represented, but not enough that they could make a difference? Would it surprise you that they did that?
Not at all, because I've always said the official policy of the Black Powder podcast is that gerrymandering is what politicians do. They choose the voters. Voters don't choose the politicians.
It's a recreation of like civil rights era redlining is what it is.
And at the end of the day, the voting districts look like fish skeletons.
Yep.
Oh, dude,
if you've ever gutted a catfish, there's a lot of business, or a trout. There's a lot of bones that you got to get around to get a little sliver of pure meat.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's what politicians do. They cut it up where you're not going to get anything but bones and cartilage. You're not going to get any pure meat, so you can truly represent your interests.
The one thing I liked, though, about the gerrymandering thing that is really interesting to me, and is for a little bit of history here, used to be back in the day, if you had 3 congressmen in your state, you had 3 congressmen. There wasn't like a single member district. You had 3. And so maybe the top 3 people on the ballot won, the top 4 people on the one. And then back in the day, the Whig Party starts losing. And so they set up this rule to try to keep their power, right? And so this has been on the damn books since like the 1800s. It was established to basically rig the system.
Yeah.
And this is just saying, hey, we're not mandating you do this, but we want to give you the power to do this back, basically.
That's right. Yeah. Right now, the government forbids states from changing the rules on, having different districts and different representation. Right. And so this gives people back the power to have, and like Marcus was saying, is have the people be represented by them, not the government deciding who they're going to represent. Right. Like it needs to work the other way around. Right. So that's all that. Establishing voters commissions and independent commissions, allowing the states to draw that kind of stuff, and so that's a good piece. We really like that piece, and then right now you hear all these people in America are pissed off. Like whether you're left or right, you're pissed off. We have January 6th and we have the BLM riots, and everybody in America is angry because they don't feel like the government is listening to them. They don't feel represented. They feel disenfranchised. They feel like their vote doesn't count. And so we need to bring back transparency into our system, because you hear everybody talking about, well, on 3 o'clock in the morning, they just added a bunch of votes to the other column and suddenly the other guy won, or I wasn't able to get to the polls. They closed them early, or they kicked us out of line, or, whatever it was. And so this whole thing is about allowing citizens to check out what's going on behind the scenes. Right now, if you want to audit the election system, you have to be a Democrat or Republican.
That's right.
So you have these two private corporations who are running the show, and then they get to decide who's going to watch the hen house, right?
Yeah.
These two foxes are like, we're going to watch the hen house. Don't worry about it. We got this. It's free and fair elections.
And would it surprise you to know that in a lot of states, the only people who get to audit the election are the people who won the election? They're like, no, we checked it out. Everything's good. Y'all don't worry about it.
We investigated ourselves. Let me ask this question real quick. So with Trump in Colorado and Maine, and I spoke to the circus and these clowns that we need, but obviously Trump has never been convicted of any particular crime, sedition or whatever.
He was actually he was acquitted by the Senate on a charge of inciting an insurrection.
Exactly.
He was acquitted. He wasn't just not convicted. He was found not guilty. Yeah.
So how do we balance states' rights, which is a real thing that we need to we need to acknowledge? How do we balance states' rights with this current conundrum that we're in with Trump in Maine and Colorado and whatnot?
Yeah. So first things first, and that is that the Colorado thing and the Maine thing is pandering and virtue signaling by the Democrats. They know that this isn't even going to be a thing. They know the Supreme Court's going to whack it down, right? This is like the wealth tax, where they run it out and they're like, we're going to do a wealth tax. And they know damn well that it's not constitutional, and the courts are going to beat the crap out of it, right?
And they also know that the wealthy fund their campaigns. They're like, hey, we're going to say this. We don't really mean it. Just let us say it. Yeah.
And so this is secretaries of states and people in those states who are basically pandering to their base so that they can get reelected. They're like, look, we tried to stop evil Trump from getting on the ballot. They know that he's still going to be on the ballot. They're just saying it so that people give them money. They're like, we did it. You got to donate to us. It's all a sham, dude.
It's like they don't understand either that every time they do this, this man raises like another $1 billion. I mean, like, it's like you're giving the man free press constantly. Yeah.
So this is gonna be shot down. It's gonna be a big nothing. But what it does for us is it shows how ridiculous the system is, how rigged the system is, and how they are willing to just completely go against the grain and against the Constitution to rig the system against the regular. They're not even hiding it anymore. They're rigging it against their own people. They rigged it against RFK. They're rigging it against Vivek. They're rigging it against Marianne Williamson. They're denying all these people ballot access.
They rigged it against Bernie. They rigged it against Ron Paul. I mean, you can 100%. Go back. This started, and again, like you said, they're not even shy about the fact that they're doing it. And it's been like that with everything. We and you were talking one day offline about just like numbers, like economic numbers. I think 15 of the past 16 job reports have been revised down.
Right.
Like 2 months later, quietly, no headlines. It's like record jobs. And then like 2 months are like, actually, that wasn't true, but don't say nothing. And there you go. Yeah.
Right. And the media headline isn't like, instead of saying like this is the number that was just released, instead of running that headline, imagine if they ran the headline, government lies to us again. 3 months ago, they changed the rules, right? It's like the inflation numbers. The inflation numbers, they change it every time to suit their purpose. They'll change what's in the basket of things that they, predict. And we were talking about this earlier about how things have gone up 50%. And that isn't 2 or 3% inflation. Stuff's 50% more than it was a couple years ago, or they're giving you half the amount of crap that you used to get for the same price, right?
Yeah.
Like that, like the inflation's out. It's
shrinkflation.
Yeah.
Before we get to Eric, because I know Eric has something to say.
He's itching for a question.
I
can tell him he's getting antsy over there. Yeah.
I gotta ask, as the black man, I have to say ask. AXE.
You bring me back to my elementary school days, man. Yeah.
All three of you guys.
You're trying to say it wrong and you can't even get it wrong.
You are not being a good example right now.
Yeah. I grew up in the suburbs, forgive me. But why are Americans so fucking stupid that they fall for this bullshit? Because this is the most important election of our lifetimes in 2024.
It is.
Again,
it's so
I don't know how many more elections can be more important than the last one. But
so Lars, why do people continue to fall for bad in lies and press? Why do you think they continue to fall for it?
First of all, I don't think it's that people are stupid. I think it's people don't have time to watch all this stupid crap, all this malarkey that's going on, right?
Bingo.
People are busy at work. People are busy taking care of the kids. The last thing they want to do is like watch over government's shoulder for every little thing that they're going to do, right? And it's too big of a morass to even do that. You'd spend all your time watchdogging the government, and every day you'd find some way that they lied to you or screwed you. And and after about a week of that, you just throw up your hands and be like, "Holy shit, the system is so."
All of us, are eating regularly, and luckily none of us are worried about how to pay our mortgage, at the first. But for most people that are doing that, they don't have time to think about these things. They don't care about the Middle East. They don't care about this. They just are trying to get through the day, and they got you beat down. Marcus, will you pull that comment up from D right there? This would be good to kind of bring into the conversation regarding the Voter Bill of Rights. It's the very last one. What's Lars' thoughts on Malay? Just did in Argentina. One-day voting, paper ballots, handmade ballot boxes, voter ID required. America Next. Address that from the VBR perspective, the Voter Bill of Rights perspective.
Yeah, so I think, obviously every state gets to choose, and we've already said that. So the states, the way that the Constitution is set up, the states get to determine how they're going to do their voting. And so, and I'm a big 10th Amendment guy. I like that the states have power over the federal government. Yep. But that being said, we do have to have some kind of continuity, and there is precedent where there is some rules that are federal rules for federal elections, right? And I think that that's the case. And so one of the things for the Voters' Bill of Rights, which is super important, is that every citizen can demand a printout of their vote, a receipt, as it were, of what their vote was, right? So then they can take that receipt and they can go and they can compare that receipt to the record that the government has online for how they voted, right? So they can determine if the government has their vote correct. So there's no more hanging chads or weird crap like that. And if you see a discrepancy, you can protest your vote and have it recounted.
Yeah,
right?
and just again, it's the disinfectant, sunlight, the disinfectant, the transparency of it, right? And the other thing I liked about it was, okay, I've run a campaign, you're running a campaign, trying to get access to voter rolls. Okay, because again, there's no continuity of the system. Michael White could be registered in 7 states at once, right? Technically speaking, I could be no access to it. You address that too here, right?
Yeah. Well, the thing is that every voter has the right to audit the system, just not only with that piece of evidence, but they can audit the entire voting system, because all states have to keep records of all the votes cast, right? So that it's very easy to audit. And it's not just the Democrats or Republicans that can audit it. It's anybody, any citizen.
And to be clear to people, it's not like you're not saying that you can go see how Michael White voted or how Eric voted.
No, but you can check to make sure that the vote was accurate, right? And so right now, the only people that can check the vote was accurate was the people that the duopoly says can check it, right? And so that's not right. And another piece that we have is that all voting code can be open source so that anybody can audit the voting code, right? Because and like just like on Twitter or X, they open the algorithm so that you can see all the code, and now you know that the game isn't rigged against you, right? If you don't know the code, the Dominion software scandal that everybody is all up in arms about. Well, if everybody got to see the code, then we'd all know, and there wouldn't be a scandal, right? But because there's not transparency on our system, it makes it easy for people to even if it was fair, you wouldn't know because there's no way to audit it. So we need to have a way to audit it so everybody believes that the system is fair. Because without that, we feel disenfranchised, we feel our vote doesn't count, and then we start rioting in the streets. That's really what it comes down to, right? Because people get pissed off when they're oppressed and they're feeling like their voice doesn't count. And I don't want to see America go down that dark path where we end up having bloodshed over this thing that we could easily fix, right? We can fix this. It's not really that hard. And Congress never gets off its ass and does the job that it's supposed to do. Like they could fix this, but it benefits them. So they have no impetus to actually fix these problems, right? Because they benefit because they're all duopoly, right? So they have the guys protecting the hen house again have no incentive to fix the problem, right? And so this has to be a grassroots movement of the people demanding their elected officials to implement these rules so that we can have free and fair elections again. So that we can have integrity.
So the concept of this, the VBR, to be clear, this isn't a law. It's not legislation. The idea of this is that it is unrigging the conversation to unrig the system. This is the 95.5 issues here. These are the way it should go. Like, I really like the fact, for instance, like the voter ID issue. Okay. As Larry has so said to me, and Marcus kind of feels the same way. There's a part of the voter ID thing that disenfranchises a lot of people. They feel like it reminds them of pre-civil rights era poll taxes, these sorts of stuff. And it addresses it and says, look, we're not going to mandate you one way or the other, but here's the deal. If you're going to require voter ID, that ID has to be free.
Yeah, like it has to be, and that's not socialism, Eric.
That's the workaround. I mean, and I have to agree with that because I mean, on principle alone, that does become an indirect poll tax at the end of the day from principle alone. And then also restoring rights for felons too. Like if they're out of prison, they can vote again.
They paid their dues.
Pay their dues, man. Yeah, Eric, I know you're itching bad for a question over here. I see. I'm sorry. We've kept Eric quiet all show.
All right. Well,
you're out of the corner now.
One of the questions I had was, of those 5,000 signatures in Maine, how many of them do you think or know were prior registered libertarians? Ballpark, if you had to guess.
I'm not sure on that, but I think they only had a few thousand. So we registered a lot of new people for sure. I mean, absolutely. We brought in new people to the party. That's a certainty. We're having our California election coming up here, and I registered a lot of brand new libertarians, and they're going to be, first time people to attend conventions and do that sort of thing. So those we're getting new people into the party. We're getting new kind of, and young people too. A lot of young people are getting excited about this run. And so I'm very excited about that. I feel like we're definitely, what I like about the main thing is that we did something and we had a win, right? The Libertarian Party doesn't get a lot of wins. And this was a serious win for the Libertarian Party as a whole, not just Maine, because it basically fixes it. Look, every election cycle, the Libertarian Party spends hundreds of thousands of dollars on ballot access, right?
That's right.
And if they don't have to worry about one state anymore, then that money gets freed up for the next state and the next state. And what I'd like to see is this Voters' Bill of Rights implemented where we don't have any problems with ballot access at all. And the party can spend all of its money promoting its candidates, getting its candidates on the ballot, and getting materials out so we can spread the message of liberty instead of giving money to states which don't deserve our money, right? For a rigged system. I'd rather that money go to our advertising where new people find out about what liberty is all about and be like, yeah, that's what I'm about and that's what I want to push, right?
Right. I mean, just the fact that like we need some advertising in the LP of just what a libertarian means. Yeah. Because Lord have mercy, like the criticism that I received, 99.9% of it has never been about something I've said, believe, or promoted. It has been that the libertarian label has been used as a pejorative. Oh, you're just a dumb libertarian. That's what it is, and we have got to change that public perception.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to contact on two things real quick. So far, Lars has said morass twice. And I know a lot of Americans didn't do well on their SATs and ACTs.
He means
And
more
they don't
ass.
know what that word means. And I want to thank him for bringing that into the lexicon of the Black Powder podcast.
I don't know what lexicon
morass.
means, Marcus. What are you talking about? You just took one word and made another difficult word.
Secondly,
We're losing
I'm gonna
listeners
move
as
on.
we speak.
I'm moving
Yeah.
on. If you can't fuck with it, you can't fuck with it. Secondly, I'm moving on.
So,
All right,
Lars,
go ahead.
to be
And
clear,
I'm talking
Eric's got
about
a question. Eric has a
not
question.
Marcus. I didn't want to cut him off. Go ahead.
The second part is I want to talk about the outreach on libertarians and my mission in 2024, which is the outreach to Black voters, because I think we can gain 10 to 15% from Black voters alone.
Word.
Yeah.
And I spoke to this in our year-end closing, because Black people understand government is fucked up. So I'm not trying to put you on the spot, Lars, but how do you think we expand the message of libertarianism within your voters' Bill of Rights? What did you call it, Michael? It's a VB,
The VBR. Victor
VBR.
Bravo Romeo. The VBR. Because that's the
yeah.
Well, I think one thing I want to talk about on that is Larry Sharp did a special on Juneteenth. It's on YouTube, and I watched that special, and it absolutely changed my whole viewpoint on racism in America. Like, it is, like, everybody needs to watch that special because it is badass, right? And essentially, he paints a picture that racism in America is due to government interference, is due to the government, right?
That's what I always say.
Yeah. But he lays it out with facts and examples, like multiples of them, and he gives you a timeline in America how American government has systematically been racist and caused racism, and we still see it today, right now, in all over the place. The government is fostering this stuff, right? And so I think that what we have to do, I think that's the angle we have to take to get to people, is that, like, look, the government is responsible for suppressing people, right, all over the place, and regardless of your color, really, they're for suppressing people, right? And so if you want to have more freedom in your life, if you want to have less racism in America, then we got to get government out of the way, and we got to get government to stop promoting this crap, right?
Yeah.
Because regular people, they're not born racist. Regular people are just not,
not
that's
at all.
I had a friend when I was a kid, and
Marcus was born racist, and he said that he met me and he wasn't racist anymore.
I love.
Oh man,
I'm sorry. It's just fun. Yeah. I'm sorry. I like the fun part of racism, but go ahead.
He met Michael and became a libertarian too.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, it's government is the problem. I mean, that is
100%. Government.
We have a lot of questions over here. I want to ask a couple of them real quick. We have one from one listener. What's really going on in America? He first asks. He says, "How can we hold politicians accountable to their finances to avoid stealing our money for themselves?" And as a continuation, he kind of says, "Imagine someone going into politics with barely any money and coming out with millions of dollars." Right.
Yeah.
Kind of address that from an unrig the system perspective. It doesn't have to be a policy agenda, but kind of address that.
Well, I mean, I think for me, the one piece of policy that I like in that is this whole insider stock trading thing, where you have, Martha Stewart did insider trading on like 75 grand or something like that. And she got busted, and she wore an ankle bracelet, and they threw the book at her and made an example of her. Right. And then, you've got every person in Congress doing the exact same thing, and it's cute when they do it. Right. And it's like, that's a rigged system. So that's got to stop. And for me, a lot of people are saying, well, you should sell all your stocks. And I'm like, well, that causes this tax problem. If you sell all your stocks, you got to pay all these capital gains. So you want to force everybody to, so that's not realistic. But I do think that disallowing anybody serving public office from trading in individual stocks is a realistic and reasonable ask, right? You can still participate in the stock market through ETFs, broad range, broad ETFs,
really
like
broad reaching things. Yeah.
Yeah. So that you're not having any, and then your impetus is just making sure America is growing, not just the company that you're trying to back.
You
right?
could even maybe restrict that more to just not even ETFs, industry ETFs, like just index funds and like just American index funds, like tracking the S&P, tracking the NASDAQ, tracking the NYSE and the Russell, because I could see a shiesty congressman going to the Financial Services Committee and being like, hey, I want to buy this real estate investment trust because I know that they're about to get this huge tax break.
Sure.
And my buddy who works over at BlackRock is going to change the allocation, the REIT, to where 99% magically is that share, right? So
that's why it has to be the broad range stuff. It can't be the niche ETF kind of things. But I think that's a reasonable fix. And we have too much money in politics, obviously, and it's like, but I think part of that is because we have these characters that have been in there for 30 or 40 years, right? And so I personally am a fan of term limits. I don't think anybody should serve in Congress more than 12 years. I think that it should be a service position and not a career, because you're serving American people, right? You're not there to like engross yourself, enrich yourself. You're there to serve the American people and make their lives better. And if you're there for 40 years, you're going to get corrupt. It's just the way of the game. Like it's going to be, even if you go in there like with principles, you're probably going to come out 40 years later corrupt just because of the way the system works. So the less you're in there, the less corrupt you're going to be. And that's just my opinion on that. But I'm a big fan of limiting the people, because when Congress first started, they served short periods of time and they went back to their regular jobs during the off season, and it was a service position, not a career. And I think we need to get back to that.
100% agree.
This is the most socialist take I've ever had, but I say that we cut their pay in half and then put them in public housing in DC.
No, man, even better than that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Their congressional salaries should be directly tied to the median income of their district.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
So if their district is doing better, they're doing better. And let me tell you,
I like that. I like that.
And here I go a little further with this because most I want to get these assholes out is their expense accounts, like the travel expense accounts, all this kind of stuff done away with.
Apartments and all the rest of that stuff.
Yeah,
because there's one thing that people don't understand.
Condos in DC.
Yeah. No. They all gave. Oh, dude, they're doing very well. Yeah.
Because most of in the beginning, most of the congressmen and senators were planners, so they came to DC after harvest, before the winter, for that short period of time to address the needs of the American people, which you only need about 12 to 24 weeks.
They don't even need that much time.
That's a lot of time.
All they do is fuck around for most of it.
100%. They just screw around. They literally pander and virtue signal 75% of the year, and we're going to have a new trial. We're going to have a new hearing. We're going to roll this thing out. I'm like, how does that put food on my table? Damn it.
And then at the very last minute, very last 3 days, they go, we're going to shut the fuck down if we don't figure this out. Oh, God. And then they go, okay. Then they just put everything in one big bill and pass it and go back home and act like they've done something great. Yeah. That's the
one
past,
thing about California. California does have term limits. And California has a law where you don't pass the budget, you don't get paid.
Yeah.
So we do have some bullshit from these bullshit-ass liberals who are taking massive losses in the Second Amendment, by the way. I just want to point that out.
Yes,
California,
they are right now. Oh, yeah.
California is fucking killing it in the 2A right now. So,
Can you give me a couple examples?
Yeah, elaborate a little bit on how California, as a Californian.
And a gun guy.
Elaborate a little bit.
So recently in California, they passed SB 2, which would have restricted carrying a CCW firearm in just about everywhere.
Pretty much
you would you would only be able to actually transit with a firearm. You wouldn't be able to take it into virtually any business or any entity in
A
California.
bookstore, a restaurant,
No,
Home Depot,
and that was struck down
Lowe's.
by the Ninth Circuit.
Yeah.
And the Ninth Circuit is really liberal. It's super
Yeah,
liberal. So the liberals shot it down, right? And I yelled at Newsom online the other day. I said, for a guy who's supposed to be upholding the damn Constitution, you sure are hell bent at destroying it. You sure are hell bent on getting rid of the Second Amendment, right? And it, like, to me, there should be no federal gun laws at all, except for the Second Amendment. That's the only gun law we need. There's no other gun law we need. That's the only one we need. And the states can take it up how they want, but if they are going against the Constitution, then that needs to be shot down.
100%. Yes.
Yeah. And then we have the
but we need Lars, we need universal background checks because we just need those, right?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
we need more gun laws.
That stops all the guys from getting guns that want guns, right? Like all that does is suppress
or using them in a nefarious way. Yeah,
that's right. That only suppresses regular law-abiding citizens. The guys that want the guns go out and get them anyway.
Or we just need to make murder illegal and just cover all of it.
Yeah, we should make murder illegal, and then it would stop, right? Just like we should just ban use of drugs, and no one will use drugs anymore.
No one will do drugs.
We should prohibit alcohol, and people won't drink alcohol anymore.
Yeah.
You know,
you guys are making too much sense. My mind is blown right now because this makes too much effort sense. On California, we also have, aside from the so-called assault weapons bill, the 10+ magazine bill, as well as all of these things are moving forward. So pretty soon, California will be on par with Texas, my good friend in Arkansas. Real quick. And I want to do a side note because I sent Michael a picture yesterday of me at Disneyland. My kids didn't get groomed. I want to tell all the people that first. I watched, and I was ready to go.
I was ready.
Yeah, I actually stopped a guy from beating up his girlfriend, and I cooperated with the police yesterday because he was a dick. I had to go up and stand next to this guy. That's another story. But real quick, California is moving in the right direction with the Second Amendment, and we need to stop and thank people like Lars and myself for maintaining the fight and not leaving this state. And I just want to thank.
Hats off to you
Marcus,
guys.
hit the applause button.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go.
What's that?
I went to the range today. I'm gonna have a pretty cool shooting video with my kids. We put it down today.
I have one question a point of clarification on your California's assault weapons thing.
Yeah.
Wasn't it just essentially like all semi-autos with sporting rifle features, basically?
Basically, it was all features because here in California, you can get an AK-47. You can get
but you got that ugly ass fin behind the grip,
but you
right?
have the fin. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And then,
because nobody can cut that off. Right. I mean,
if you own firearms, you could never take a screwdriver and gently remove that fin and put on a normal pistol grip or anything.
Nobody will do that.
Never do that.
Nobody will do that.
There's no 3D printers, right now.
They don't exist. That's not a real thing. No.
And we didn't have Freedom Day where you bought 30+ round magazines.
It's almost like it's pandering. It's almost like it's pandering and virtue signaling at this point because everybody knows what the outcome of all this is. Yet Newsom is still in there like, we're going to ban all the guns. We got to get a constitutional amendment to get rid of the Second Amendment so that it's all. He knows that's never going to happen.
That's the thing about Newsom. Thank you for bringing that up. He talks out of both sides. Like he mentions this 28th Amendment thing.
Ultimate hypocrite.
Because he understands that these things are unconstitutional.
That's right.
Right. But then he also does it this way. So which one is it, Gavin?
It's just whatever gets him votes. What do you think?
What are the chances right now of a Newsom replacing Biden in the general election?
I think it's huge. I think it's very, very big. Yeah. And
that dude looks like he purges. You know what I'm saying? He's so weird.
We do not want that. America definitely does not want that at all. That guy is the biggest hypocrite.
Slime ball.
Slime ball. It's just so bad. Be very aware if Newsom gets on, do anything you can to make sure that Newsom does.
All right, so let's do this. Okay, hey, hold on. So, Eric, you were just recently in Florida, so this is where you were living. So, DeSantis, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Newsom. Which one do you pick to be president? If you had to pick one of them.
If I had to pick one of those, I might pick Sarah Huckabee. I mean,
no, man, I would see. I go to Sanders.
Yeah, I mean, well, so like that's the thing is, and you mentioned it in the pregame show, I guess, before we went live about how she's pulling the same thing that DeSantis did, trying to pretend like this limited government dude. Whenever he passed the largest tax increase in the state of Florida history, so you know what I mean. Like you're not a limited government guy.
If anybody wants the real deal on DeSantis, go back and watch the first Eric Parker episode or listen to it because he laid it down. I mean, you set the record straight for me. I did not know all these things. And so, I literally thought that he was like the quintessential example of how COVID should have been handled. And you were like, none of that shit happened. Yeah.
Well, none of it happened. The only state that didn't close was North Dakota or whatever, like Kristi Noem, right? I think that's her name. Like, she's the only state that didn't shut down. Like, DeSantis closed down for 3 months. You know what I mean? Yeah. Then he's given credit for all the
they were arresting people on the beach running by themselves in California. So
Exactly.
Well, I'll say this: as Lars and I are Californians, and I'm the only real libertarian. Sorry, Lars. You know,
it's all right.
While you're up there shining in your presidential,
you win this thing.
Whatever. I'm the only real libertarian. I'm gonna say this: Gavin Newsom was married to Kimberly Guilfoyle, who is currently engaged to Donald Trump Jr.
Isn't that weird? It's almost like they're all one thing.
So Gavin Newsom is so bad
that
he sent a hardcore. She was the first lady of San Francisco.
Okay.
Kimberly Guilfoyle.
How long ago was this?
This was in 20 shit.
Like 15 years.
Approaching 20 years right now.
The progressive capital of the world.
Yeah, boy. And Kimberly Guilfoyle currently engaged to Donald Trump Jr. Gavin Newsom is so bad he turned a hardcore bleeding heart libertarian into a right-wing conservative zealot.
But again, this comment nails it. Republicans and Democrats are the uniparty. Again, I think it's professional wrestling at this point in time.
Yeah.
You know, that's where I am. Like, I don't, it's very strange. It is a strange situation.
And, Newsom has been fixing homelessness for 30 years. And homelessness is now worse than it's ever been.
But Xi Jinping came and all of a sudden, like, the homeless people got swept off the street or something.
Yeah.
If he just had a little more money and could incarcerate a few more people, finally homelessness would be taken care of in California. He needs a little bit more time, guys. 20 years isn't enough.
Yeah,
if you guys want to see how efficient liberals are in California, wait till 2028. 2028 when the Olympics come to Los Angeles.
Oh, geez.
And this city will be immaculate.
Dude,
what they did in San Francisco wasn't shit.
Yeah.
Just keep in mind, there will be no traffic. There will be no homeless. Every burrito
and there'll be like a mass grave
dug
out in the desert or
There's
something
still
like that.
Probably going to be lots of cocaine though.
Yeah, probably so.
The drugs will be here. Just keep in mind, Olympic athletes, I want to speak to them for one moment here. Cocaine only stays in your system for 24 to 48 hours. So California will have some of the best because we are only 110 miles from the Mexican border here in Los Angeles.
You seem to know a lot about this, Marcus.
Freeway Ricky Ross, baby.
I'm just speaking to the facts, bro. Nobody likes the facts, fuck off.
So,
Lars, is cocaine a performance-enhancing drug?
Quite possibly.
Depends on what it is you want to do.
And let me tell you that I have never done cocaine in my life knowingly.
What the
I'm
hell?
not going to say anything else than that.
I also have never taken any illegal drugs.
So I have never done any illegal drugs in my life ever.
Can we get an official statement from Lars Mapstead on drug usage?
Oh, drug usage. So, well, I'm a sober guy for 37 years, 37 since 1986.
Yeah.
Because I was a garbage can. I've done it all and a lot of it. And, that's the deal. But the thing is I was such a train wreck that I ended up getting sober at 17 years old because I was going to die I wouldn't have made it to 21. Like, there's no way I would have
Shit.
made it to 21. I was a train wreck, right?
And so and the
Spike
government
Cohen.
got you sober, right? It was
Yeah.
government laws that got you sober.
Absolutely.
Laws,
They just, you know what it was? It was all those ads from Nancy Reagan. This is your brain. This is your brain on drugs. I was like, oh no,
I'm gonna turn my life around.
I gotta
stop this stuff.
Hold on, I gotta be honest for a second, because Spike Cohen has a very similar story, because he was extremely young when he became sober. You were extremely young when you became sober. I'm just like, fuck, dude, why didn't I meet you guys earlier before then, so I could have experienced what the fuck brought you to that point at 17,
Spike
18
and
years
Lars
old?
were partying hard.
That's some hardcore shit.
Yeah.
You know, I was barely doing Michelob Light at 18 years old.
We've had that discussion that it's a good thing he and I didn't meet when we were young, because it would have been we might not have gotten sober.
And you still work with recovering alcoholics and addicts right now, right? I mean, like,
absolutely, all my life. That's part of how I stay sober, is to make sure that other people are able to get sober. You know, so I've literally worked with tens of thousands of people over the years that I've been helping get people get sober and stay sober, and there's nothing more feel good than seeing somebody come out of the depths of despair and then create a life that's worth living for themselves and their families around them, because it's a family disease. It wrecks everybody and everything around them. So when you help somebody pull themselves out of that mess, you're helping all kinds of people. You're helping all of society not have to deal with this, because, you know, when in these cities, the majority of the problems, the majority of the people that are getting arrested are on drugs of some sort, and they're habitual problems, right? Like, most people aren't that, but there's like 1 to 2% of society that's just completely screwed off. They have this disease of alcoholism and drug addiction, and there's no solution for it other than them kind of like finding a come to Jesus moment or some spiritual awakening that like gets them shocked out of the system, and they're like, I want to change my life and I need help to do it, right? Like, you can't force any of these people to get it right. You can't force them to change their life. Only they can like get in there and change their life for themselves. Really.
I always find it very interesting that individuals like you and Spike and others, myself, we're anti-prohibition, right?
Yep.
And maybe would have every reason to be for it. And people that have never done anything seem to be so for prohibition. Talk about how prohibition doesn't work, and why you think, even as a recovering addict and alcoholic, it's a stupid idea.
Yeah, it absolutely doesn't work, and it's super easy to understand. We had prohibition on alcohol in the 30s, and all it did was create Al Capone. All it did was create massive amounts of crime. And, you know, because it just went underground, right? And the war on drugs is just an utter and complete failure. We've been at it for like 50 years, and all that it's done is created more usage. And the reason that is because it created the cartels south of the border to import all, it handed them a monopoly. So the government handed the monopoly to these drug lords. And if you're a person that's selling drugs and that's your business, what do? If you're selling telephones and you want to increase your business, what do? You get more people to buy telephones, don't you? Right. So if you're a drug seller, your job is to get more people hooked on drugs. And so we created literally an organization that goes out, a monopoly that goes out and gets people hooked on drugs. And it's clear that throwing a little bit more money at it and incarcerating a few more people is never going to fix the war on drugs. The only way to fix the war on drugs is to completely go the opposite direction, treat it as a disease, get people the help that they need, and stop having this monopoly with these cartels that are like basically ruining Americans' lives, right? And I believe also that this would fix a lot of the problems at our southern border, because by creating all these problems with these cartels, we're creating instability south of the border, and that instability leads to people fleeing. And then where do they go? They come to the place where it's safe, right? And so we have literally created our immigration problem by our war on drugs, and it's that whole story of what Harry Brown used to say is the government's great at breaking your leg and then handing you a crutch and saying we're here to help. Screw that shit. We need to end the failed war on drugs and be done with this, and stop making it such a miserable thing for people, right? Like it's so failed. It's so clear in my head that we need to deschedule these drugs. We need to end the federal war on drugs altogether, and we need to abolish all the agencies that are involved with the drug war. We need to abolish the ATF. We need to abolish the DEA. We need to abolish all those agencies because they're useless.
Yeah.
All they do is
Completely.
harm American citizens, and we need to end it.
And
Sorry,
they want to just exacerbate the problem. Go ahead, Eric. Sorry.
Go ahead.
No. So real quick, and I don't want to take any wind out of anyone's sails. That was an epic diatribe against the war on drugs. And I know that California person, you lived through the Reagan era, which was responsible for the was that the Iran Contra? Was that?
Yeah,
Reagan?
and then you also had Olin
Yeah.
right here represented on this buddy. Yeah.
There you go. So, but hypothetically, and just for the record, right now, Lars, you're my choice for president. So I'm not trying to show any type of bias, but right now you're my guy. You haven't done anything to embarrass the Libertarian Party, but I am mostly excited about what you've been doing, helping out states gain ballot access. You've been door knocking for candidates. You've been helping fund candidates, helping fund candidate training all over the United States. So I thank you for that. Because of the leadership you've shown with just growing the Libertarian Party, if you don't get the nomination as the president, have you thought about throwing your hat in the ring as the LNC chair?
Yeah, so I have thought about it, and I don't think that it would be the job for me. Look, honestly, that's a horrible job. That is a really tough job, right? Like all you're going to do is get yelled at all day long, and people are going to be all pissed off at you, and you don't get a congressman's salary to take the heat, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like it's kind of a thankless job, right? I think that what I would like to do is I would like to be sort of a thoughts and operations guy that would be like helping the LNC come up with some really good institutional knowledge that we can pass on, because after running for president here, I realized that there's a lot of things that could be done way better and way more efficiently. I'm a business guy. I ran businesses. That's what I do. I try to figure out how things are not working properly and fix them and make them work good. And there's just so many things that we do that are just ass backwards, that harm the party, that make it so that it's so super extra difficult to achieve the goals that we want to achieve. And I don't know that I would be able to necessarily do that from a chair perspective, but I would like to offer a whole bunch of insights on kind of institutional stuff. So like one thing that I would like to see, one thing that I'd like to see is it seems to me that every time we elect a new LNC, that a lot of knowledge is lost, and that they start doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. They're like, well, we can do this better, or we can do that better, right? What I'd like to see is that each chair, we don't have like a board of directors. Like when I work for companies, when I run companies, you have a board of directors, and they're the ones that kind of oversee the grand vision of the company. And then you have the operations people, the CEO and the chairperson, that sort of thing, right? So I'd like to see each chair roll into a board member position so that we have like 8 last chairs, all working together with their institution knowledge, and they'll be able to say, hey, in 1986 we did this and it sucked, so you should look at doing this, right? And so they could steer. It's like a steering committee. It's like a committee that just kind of like helps steer the ship, and then the LNC can implement all the things that are going on, and that way there's not this like constant turnover and this constant like it's almost like the turnover to me is a lot like the turnover in Congress between the Democrats and the Republicans. And we don't get anything done because they keep undoing each other's, works, right? And we need to move forward. We need to move forward. So yeah, I don't think I would be that, but I definitely think I have a lot of ideas that I'd like to share with people to maybe help the party grow and be more successful.
So I have a follow-up to that, a hypothetical. This is hypothetical. In my view, the Libertarian Party has 2 real challenges. I think one is we have an image problem, and I think 2, we have an application problem. Kind of like you, we are viewed, I think, in what we're not, and then we don't do the things that we can. Right?
Yeah.
What would you do if you were to wave a magic wand, as they so say? What would you do to change the LP's image? What image would you want it to be, and how would you get there?
Well, so I'm a backer of You Are the Power. I'm a big fan of what Spike Cohen is doing. And I was having a discussion with him about feel good, right? I think we need more feel good. I like one of the things that was like super cool when we went to Maine Pat Ford was in Maine, right? He came out to do boots on the ground with us, and he has a thing where whenever city he goes to, he goes and he buys pallets of water, okay, and then he goes out into the city and he hands out pallets of water to the homeless people, right? And they're super appreciative of that, right? And I think we need to do more feel good outreach. I think we need to be in the community showing that we're supportive of the community, that we do all the things that we talk about, right? And I think that would go a long way, because if you go and you're like, let's say you're at the homeless shelter and you're the libertarians of X county are feeding homeless for the weekend, or handing out toys at Toys for Tots, or working at the food bank or something like that. I think those kind of things really like excite people, and people are like, oh, these libertarians, they really helped, right? They really like, that puts a good image in people's minds when you're out there helping people.
Right.
It's almost like show by example, right? Lead by example, show by example. It's attraction rather than promotion. We need to attract people to the Libertarian Party. We don't even necessarily need to promote it. We need to show them that we're doing the deal. And then people are like, oh, that looks good. I want to be part of that, right? That's the thing, is we need to attract people instead of promoting to people, I think.
I like that. I like it a lot.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Mapstead, is this message that we need to get, the libertarian message, is it more generational or is it more social in the messaging?
What do you mean, point of clarification? What do you mean?
Well, I know we have the Generation X people are 100% libertarian. We're a libertarian generation. Now, how do we deal with millennials and Generation Y and Z?
Good question.
That
you've been on the campaign trail. You've been meeting voters.
Yeah.
What do you see? Yeah.
Well, the thing that I kind of around that idea is, I think it's as age changes you. Having kids changes you. Yeah. Having a job changes you. When you're young, you're kind of idealistic. You want everybody to have equal stuff. You want everybody to have a fair shake, and you don't really, you're less inclined to understand government intrusion in your life, because it probably hasn't intruded in your life very much unless you've been incarcerated or something like that, right?
Yeah.
But as you get older and you've had interactions with the DMV and with the healthcare system and with the judicial system and like all the crap that you have to deal with, you start to like get a little bit jaded, and you're like, wait a minute, this isn't right. So I think that all those generations will grow into being libertarian. I think it's just literally an age thing. And as you get older, you start putting up with less crap, and you start expecting more from your government than you did early on, right?
Yeah.
Roads. I want my roads.
Well, hey, nothing wrong with roads. Everybody loves roads.
Put that question back up there, because it was a good
yeah,
question. You
John Barnett's question.
And I wanted to answer that question because I thought it was a good one.
Who, by the way, in pregame I told you this, but Marcus, he said you had moist feminine energy in a comment.
Who is this, John Barnett?
Yeah, 901 right there.
Dude, I will rock your ass, bro. Dude, I got hands.
Yeah.
With me, bro.
Yeah. So John Barnett says, I'll always hear that libertarians don't care about the environment.
Yeah.
First off, there's two questions there.
Fuck you,
First
bro.
off, why do they hear that, and what do we really believe?
Yeah. So you know what? It's interesting. I went to this Atlas Forum in New York, and it was like all these high roller people that are spreading liberty around the world. They're not necessarily libertarians, but they're Ayn Rand like people that want to spread liberty around the world. And while I was there, I was approached by some guys, and they're like, quick, what's your pitch on environmentalism? And so I was talking about, that I'm for nuclear power, and I'm for, getting the government out of the way so that we can have, more free market and that sort of thing. And he's like, oh, you're still having government choose winners and losers. I want to invite you to this Zoom call that we're going to have with all these people from MIT and like heads of stuff from all over the world around environmental stuff. And I was like, okay. I'll go, because I also felt like that. I also always felt like maybe my libertarian stuff didn't mesh well with environmental stuff, right? Like I couldn't mesh it together. And these guys laid it out for me so beautifully and completely changed my mind on the whole thing, right? And it's free market environmentalism.
That's right.
Free market environmentalism. That the idea that the market can fix the environment far better than the government ever will. Right.
Yes.
And once that was explained to me and I started like thinking about the real world examples of that, I was like, oh, this is exactly it, because I do care about the environment. I don't want to breathe crappy air or drink crappy water.
And
right?
again, and I want to remind people that, if an industry poisons the water, they have violated the non-aggression principle.
That's right.
And in an actually sound civil society, you should have recourse for them. Like,
Yeah.
you don't need somebody first to come up with a regulation that says don't put poison in the water. It's already bad to put poison in the water, right? I mean, we had, the laws that were on the books in 1784 would have dealt with this. Like, I mean, so yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's just it, is that we can approach making the planet better and environmental ideals, just not using
our
government
poisons
force.
our water. Good point.
Just not using government force. I mean, the government screws up the environment all the time, but it's cute when they do it, right? There's no one to hold the government accountable when they completely screw the pooch, right? Like, I live next to a big military base. Fort Ord is a big military base, and they abandoned that, right? The land is unusable because there's so much munitions in there, and the government doesn't want to clean it up. So they just basically blocked it all off and said this land is off limits.
It's a Superfund site. Yeah,
that's right. But we're not going to deal with it. But if it was a corporation, they would have like gone after that corporation until the corporation was bankrupt. But it's cute when the government does it, right? That happens all the time, all over the place. So I don't buy this thing that the government's going to solve all the climate issues that we have.
They're not capable of doing it.
That's right.
I mean, like I said in my debate, they can't even stop robocalls. There's no way that they're making the weather better. Like, that's not happening. It's absolutely not happening. I was just talking to the Thorium people, the Thorium Caucus people, and we're talking about nuclear stuff. And, looking at the power grid and, just from a math and engineering perspective. And, if I bring that up, objective facts and figures and like engineering things, it's really sad to see that there's a large group of people who feel attacked. Like, if I just simply say, hey, the way we're doing things, if we keep doing them this way, we're not going to be in a good position. All of a sudden, it's like I have to love the thing they hate and hate the thing they love. And I think that's a big problem in a lot of issues in America today, is that hyperpartisanship and that I'm your enemy, you're my enemy, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and people don't even want to look into anything, right? They just want their 5-second sound clip, and then they want to tell everybody else they're wrong.
Yeah. Hey, real quick, who the fuck did you just say the Thorium Caucus? Is that a caucus in the Libertarian Party?
It is. It's a very small niche caucus.
Like it's like the morass. You know what I mean?
Yes, it's a small
morass,
niche caucus.
That's the third time we use this word. But is that like a fucking Star Trek type? Who's the Thorium?
I'll give you like a 10-second.
Like
I'll give you the 10-second breakdown. Okay, so nuclear fission typically happens with uranium in current modern day plants. So it's the idea that you would use thorium. Thorium, so you give a neutron to it, it becomes protactinium-233. It gets another neutron, becomes uranium-233. Splits, you got fission, and there's a lot more thorium than there is uranium. And that's like what it is. Is like some people think that thorium is a better use for nuclear power, and I happen to agree.
It's also cleaner.
What does Lars think about Uranus being used for energy? We can start wrapping it up, but what does Lars think about Uranus?
Whatever powers the universe, I'm all for it.
If that happens, Uranus.
It's definitely Uranus.
Yeah.
No, and John Barnett brings up another good point. They mandated a gas can that doesn't spill, except when you try to fill anything with it. Those CARB compliant gas cans.
I hate those things.
I bought NATO Jerry cans and
I spill more gas. I spill more gas with those cans than I ever did with the old fashioned cans. That spilling that gas is way worse for the environment. I'm spilling way more than evaporates through the stupid thing, right? That's a perfect example of government breaking your leg and handing you a crutch and saying we're here to help. That is a perfect freaking example.
Absolutely.
You just drill that third hole, it becomes fully automatic.
Hey, and it's the same penalty as if it's just too short. So, just let everybody know that. All right, so Lars, what is next? We're going to wrap this up. What's next for Lars, the campaign for you? What you got coming up?
Yeah, Well, we're in the super grind right now. I'm going to a state convention every week from now till May. That's the real, and I'm in the grind to get delegates. So if you can show up at a state convention and be a delegate for me, I would greatly appreciate it. We're trying to get 500 people to show up to Washington, D.C. in May and vote for me to be the nominee of the Libertarian Party so I can implement all these ideas and thoughts that I'm trying to put out there. And I'd love the support, right? We have at least 100 or 200, between 100 and 200 already signed delegates that have, said that they're going to go and be our delegates. But we'd like to get to that 500. So if you can do that, go to lars24.com, sign up to be a delegate, volunteer, and donate money. I've spent $500,000 of my own money so far on this campaign, and it's not enough. To compete with the big dogs, we need millions of dollars. And
Right.
even $1 or $5 from people really helps out a lot. And it shows that I have backing and that I have the support of the people. So I can say, look, I have 1,000 individual donors. I have 5,000 individual donors. That goes a long way to saying I'm credible and that I can raise funds after the general, right? And money is going to be a big problem in this election for whoever is the Libertarian nominee, because RFK is going to be sucking a lot of the wind out of the sails, right? And we already know that for the Libertarian Party, it's hard fundraising right now. So if you don't have money and you're coming at this candidacy and thinking you're going to raise a bunch of money and that's how you're going to get your message out there, it ain't happening, folks.
Very difficult.
You need somebody with actual money to make this happen. And I think that's one reason why I'm the best candidate, because I have a huge team of people that are super awesome and super professional that are going to be able to hit the ground running the day after I am nominated so that we can actually get the message of liberty out there. And I hope to win that electoral vote on election night, put us on the map, and give us a win that we've never had before, so that people can stop saying, I'd vote for libertarians, but you guys can never win, right? We want to put that to rest, right? We want to put that to rest for good. You know what I mean?
Lars24.com, where to find you, how to fund you, and what you're going to do. That's where we can meet you. Guys, do you have anything else for our name our sponsors real quick and wrap the program up?
Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to Common Arms Trade Company, because right now Zuck is zucking the fuck out of them. And we need to go and support small businesses that support liberty. I just have one question for my guy, Lars, my fellow Californian. Do you have anybody in mind for like vice president? You don't have to say the person right now, but just say, yes, I have a guy in mind.
Yeah.
And
yes, I have a
like
guy. Yes. Yes, I have a guy in mind, and I've had that guy in mind for probably almost a year now. So, it's I'm ready to do it, but I'm not ready to announce.
Okay, cool.
There we go.
I'm not going to press that any further.
So once again,
I want to thank you.
Once again, Common Arms Trade Company has been zucked. They're not on Facebook anymore.
Yeah.
So visit them on the interwebs. Put in your Google machine, Common Arms Trade Company. They're licensed FFL in Florida. All things 2A. Do business with them. Promo code Black Powder still working, Marcus?
I believe so. And I believe Eric has our other sponsor.
Our other sponsor from Eric Parker is?
1776swag.com. So go check them out.
I'm not good with my numbers. Is that a 1776? Is that how we're going to
1776?
1776.
I love that.
Some pretty cool merch. You know what I mean? It's all over the liberty political spectrum, some non-political stuff too. So, and
Lars24.com has a store, if I'm correct.
That's correct. I love the Common Arms Trade Company. I see their stuff. They must have a direct path to me, because I see their stuff all the time still on Facebook, and I love looking at the stuff that they put out there. I think it's really great stuff, and I support them for sure.
Yeah, so Lars24.com, you can go to store, and you got all kinds of stuff. You got candles, you have a mouse pad, T-shirts, buttons. You even got Lars socks. I noticed. You got Lars.
I bought Lars wrapping paper for my Christmas gifts this year.
There you go, man. Yeah,
my family just rolled their eyes at me.
Yeah, if I had spent the kind of money so far on a campaign that you have, that would just be their gift. I'd be like, "Here's his wrapping paper. Next year you might have something in it." Yeah, we get it. So again, we're going to wrap it up. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Again, we are proudly hosted by the Firearms Radio Network. Again, visit Common Arms Trade Company. Sounds like it's spelled like it sounds. Lars24.com, where to find the man that we have today, Lars Mapstead, who is going to put liberty on the map, and also 1776swag.com. And with that, I think we can wrap it up. Marcus, do you want to give us our final line here?
Yeah, I just want to tell everybody from the deepest, darkest hearts of the African heart that I have. Live free
or die.
or die.
Now, the longest click in the history of the world happens right now, where we go offline.
I like Lars. I just wanted to say that. Bye.